Yo, so let's do this. So first of all, I think personally, even from my experience, the thought about impostor syndrome has to do with had a lot to do with a psychological state of mind, and I don't know, I don't think I know any drug out there that would help you through this state of mind. It comes from understanding, first of all, understanding what that moment is, and also putting a few plug holes, a few plugins into preparing your mindset, um, transiting that moment. So, for example, you're having headache. You know you constantly have headache when you work a lot or you stress a lot. So, I mean, instead of always looking for what to do when you have headaches, all you do is just get a first aid kit and keep it at home, something that has Panadol or some sort of drug that help calm you. So you are prepared for it. You know you constantly have this. And once that happens, you just take 2 tablets of Panadol, get some rest, and in what 4 to 5 hours, you are back on your feet. So you are prepared for that moment. So I mean, I just in the way I see it, I was having a conversation with a friend, and I said, I feel like every single thing about our life, it takes just a bit of intentionality to move around how hard it is for us to get our lives together. So just a bit of intentionality can be the difference between you and someone who probably is being overwhelmed by the same situation. So again, like I said, every or literally every successful person I know has given me this gist in one or the other. Yet they always get to this point. But let's kind of like look at what imposter syndrome sort of like means. And so first, you doubt your accomplishments. Second, have an internalized fear of being a fraud. See, these two, there are several other things that define this. But I kind of like find these two things very succinct because they kind of give a direct picture of what's happening here. Someone who hasn't accomplished anything, I'm not sure how you would have imposter syndrome. But yeah, one of the fundamentals of how you can get overwhelmed with imposter syndrome is when you do something and you think it's not enough. So there's an accomplishment, and then there's an internalized fear that what you have done is not enough. These are like these are like two factors that actually kick in when you have other things that can come from it is now you won't have evidence of the work you've done, or you just feel like you're not competent enough. You get you kind of like, ah, can I do this? Can I? Am I worth it? Am I enough? Do I think I can pull this? Have I done enough to deserve this? So it's it starts from a place of the fact that you have done something and you just feel like you haven't done enough, or you just feel like what you've done does not deserve either the accolades or the successes you are putting with. So there's always this fear that one day someone they'll come and drag you on the TL or somewhere and call you a fraud. Everyone has it. I've read a ton of times about Albert and Albert, even Martin Luther King. There was a book I was reading, and he said something about one day he was lost in some sort of trance, and the question of what if all of this he's been pursuing is just a facade? What if it blows up in his faces? Again, and he goes on to talk about how he began to think about the lives of people and what the future could mean for even an unborn black child. Those sort of reassurance gave him the push to continue to understand that what he was doing at that time was not of value for even himself, the generations to come after him. And that game. So like I said again, it starts with understanding the mindset. We'll get to that. So this is what imposter syndrome looks like. Now the small circle is what you think you know. And then the bigger circle is what you think others know. Like you feel like what you know is not enough, and maybe that one guy out there or that person probably knows so much. Funny thing is, it is not always like that. Yeah. And even if they do know so much, it's still not what to ridicule or downplay what you know. A very personal experience one time. I don't know if Darren is here. So Darren Sola posted something on Asha's WhatsApp group about a concept that I think I have tried figuring out that stuff. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was something around like um, for well over some time. And when I read it, and I was like, wow, she already figured this out. And I'm like, oh boy, are you sure you don't know anything? So like, in that moment, it felt like, what is it? I mean, I thought I kind of like knew, and I thought like this stuff was so hard that it takes so much, it takes me so much effort. And funny thing was, I actually didn't pay attention to this for the longest, but it just came over, and I remembered I tried doing this one time, and I couldn't do it, and I just left it. Okay, and now someone has done it, and I mean, I felt like Darren was, I mean, she started designing what, like a month or two ago, and I've been designing for years, and I couldn't do this. Those um, those line of thoughts would constantly happen. I mean, a lot of people who agree with me here have experienced that. They will continually happen. But that doesn't negate all the other things you know. You get. It doesn't at all. Even if you don't know that. You know that. First of all, it's a perception problem. You always perceive that just because this person knows this thing, then probably they know everything else better than yourself. And let me just correct this whole notion about knowing better than this person. Now, another, you would have to come to a point in your life where you do not treat life like a competition with others. You treat life like a collaboration with others, and that's what humanity is. You cannot live on earth on your own. You have to understand that for you to survive, collaboration is probably what everything you do should be built on. It takes another person to build success. You cannot build success. Anybody that tell you they build success on their own, well, but then sabi. But I do not think you can build success. I think you need the next person to be able to build success. So start seeing life from a point of a collaborative effort to living. And that's what humanity actually essentially is. They are being able to collaborate with other essential beings without having to kind of like feel like you're either downplaying yourself or downplaying them, or it's like a competition. But yeah, that is what. Now, in reality, this is what actually really happens. Like I said, everything kind of depends on each other. This is what you know. This is what others know in their rights. You can't take away what they know in their rights. Yeah. But somehow, everything, every single knowledge is interwoven. And now the big, one way or the other, one knowledge depends on another. Yes. For you to be able to build what you would eventually even call success. your knowledge, like I mean, the books you read, the articles you read, the videos you take, they're prepared by somebody. You get. Fun fact: you would read an article that, and you might actually even digest it better than the person who wrote the article. That's happened several times. I've seen it happen several times where I wrote something and someone took it and kind of gave a better view about it just from reading my article. And I'm like, wow, you know what? I never thought about it like that. But I think the way you think about it is the best. I've been with colleagues in the boardroom and we'll pull up strategy together and somebody comes and I say, well, you know what? How about we do this? Like, I'm like, you know what? I think yours is better because I didn't even think about it like that. So everything you need to understand that knowledge is dependent on each other. Like the knowledge you have and the expression of it eventually is dependent on each other. So you need if you, the reality of this the reality of this is that whoever it is you think you know is also dependent on the knowledge of other on when you start to see life as a form of collaboration, you begin to enjoy even what other people know. Like once you see somebody say something tricky, you still not to know, be excited to want to actually learn because that is that's one start, that's one level. You just learn something. So I call this is supposed to be fun fact, but I mean just to make it tuition like I mean something deep. I just say impulse fun fact. So I mean you guys get it. Yeah. Impulse fun fact. Many high achievers share it. This is the secret. Deep down they feel like complete frauds and their compliments are sort of like a result of serendipitous luck. And I mean I read this from an article. My slide will be shared so you can when you get it right, you can be able to click to read the article. Um, from like I said earlier, from Albert Einstein, and from like most renowned people you know worldwide, a lot of them they shared stories of how one of their biggest fear is the day all this becomes nothing. Yet that small little fear is always there. But also there is understanding imposter syndrome has to also come from understanding your personality and who you are. And here's why. There are five competency types. I mean, there could be more, but the way I see it, I kind of like highlighted five. The perfectionist, the superman, the natural genius, the soloist, the expert. Now, each of this is not strictly tied to one person. I actually discover that one person can actually have five of them playing at different points in their life. It all depends on the scenario, on the context of the scenario they find themselves. Now, but I'll kind of like go over each of them. Now, the perfectionist, the guy who wants everything done perfectly. Um, People who are naturally inclined to perfectionism are people with within the people with OCDs, maybe not extreme OCD, because well, they actually want things to be in a certain way, it's perfect. Now there are people who do not have OCDs that are also perfectionists. They're kind of like it has to be perfect. And sometimes there is no physical evidence or standard to point to what is perfect. Sometimes their idea of perfectionism is intuitive. So until that intuition is satisfied, it's not perfect. And guess what? They never ever get it perfect because the intuition is constantly fueled and riled up by several other factors. So nothing is ever perfect. So you see, they keep going back and back and back and back to the same thing over again and over again and over again. Yeah. Now this kind of people in the urge to always make things perfect, you would find them beating themselves up when things aren't actually going their way or when things aren't actually when their intuition is not being um, field. You would find them grumbled. In fact, they might actually play down on. They could actually play down on as simple as stepping out of work to just have fun and clear your head and all of that. And like, we haven't gotten this right. Why are we having fun? You get. You will see them. They're so one of the common indicators. They're actually workaholics, so, and they kind of like get there's this unexplainable um, satisfaction, not necessarily satisfaction, probably ecstasy that comes from them always working. I've, I've once figured I might not be a perfectionist to the extreme, but I know I am a workaholic, and there's this sense of fulfillment I get from working a lot. You get in some few sense, I'm actually a perfectionist. I remember I kind of like I missed one time. I kind of missed making a form field, a text field, a component. So meaning I just duplicated, and so it means if I had to change one, so I kind of like changed the look from like a material design look to I was trying to match up stripes, swarm design look and something else with it. And guess what? That was how I changed. That was how I changed the text field across 65 screens, each of them one after the other. I mean, stressful, but it didn't matter because if it didn't look that way, there was no way I would be satisfied to continue that one. Lesson learned. If you use it more than two times, make it a component. But yeah, that's it. Then the Superman or Superwoman. A natural inclination of this kind of people are people with a savior complex. When they can't, they are always the guys who want to save the world. They want to save every situation. They are naturally inclined to want to save things. One thing they are never inclined to do is to save themselves. I don't know anybody with the savior complex that actually understands that. Fam, I think you actually need this to save yourself first. Yes. Um, they want to save everything, but they are hardly um, concerned about saving themselves. So you talk to them about stuff. This talk about sometimes people just want to land, and not necessarily because they want. In fact, they might actually have a solution for first they want to land. What Superman and Superwomen, let's get to it. Let's save it. What can we do to function? And once they can't save something, it gets to them. Once they fail in saving something, it is a disaster emotionally for them. And the next time they are faced with something similar, or even in the next minute they need to save another, they are depressed that what if I fail again? It's like I said, people with severe complexes are even more inclined to this kind of complex that truth is you first need to start understanding that sometimes the word doesn't need to. I mean, we all know the word to sleeping, but you get what I mean. But sometimes, what if the best saving tactic is just to sit and watch? What if the best saving tactic is just to console the person? What if the best saving tactic is just to allow time to take its course? So we need to understand that it is not always about you being the hero here. Sometimes it's just what it is. Sometimes it is what it is. It is what it is. Then the natural genius. This this is funny because each of these what's called each of the competency types of this test, there's like a there's a bit of each of every of them that I have. So for example, the natural genius. Now the inability for someone to master a skill or some sort of uh, talent, and like replicate them in almost perfect and accurate terms over and over again, developing speed, making it become like a second nature. If people are not, if sometimes people are not able to do that, it's a disaster. That's the natural genius for the inside. They put so much effort in learning. Not they put so much effort in mastering a skill or something that if for any reason something goes off, it ticks them off like mad. You get, for example, I could remember a very fresh experience was one time when my dad made me to learn the multiplication table um, from 1 times 1 to 15 times 15, and I was supposed to know them off heart. You get, um, my younger sister, she's actually smarter than I am, and she has a natural knack for what's called numbers. But I mean, surprisingly, I'm the better one at mathematics. But that's the story for another day. But this is something that happened. We were learning this together, and I was so invested. I wasn't invested in it. I was invested in beating her because she was at 12 times 12. I was still at 8 times 8. Yes, and it got really exhausting mentally because I mean there is that time there is yogurt and meat pie was like yogurt meat pie and ice cream from Mr. Biggs there was like the in thing, and that was like the trophy for being able to do that. And just because I mean I just because I missed a few digits, I remember crying for weeks about how I didn't know anything and all of that. But she could do it. She could do it in a snap of a finger, like wake her from sleep and say, Chinyere, 12 times 11. She drops the answer like mad. Um, 10 times 12, 15 times 14. She gives you the answer. It's as if she's not thinking about it. And I really wanted that. It made me feel like I didn't know anything. So natural geniuses are like that. They want to be able to do stuff. They learn so much and that they want to be able to do stuff like just second, like it's second nature to them. Yeah. And uh, that's actually your that's actually a time bomb in the whole narration of imposter syndrome because those kind of most like that they have it worse. There's a statistics about imposter syndrome. I didn't add the link, but I will maybe before I share this document. People who self harm themselves um, from imposter syndrome oftentimes are people that have the tendency to want to be geniuses, natural geniuses. They end up self harming themselves because they feel like, for example, athletes are people who have this kind of issues too. The inability for them to do something or make their body do something, and they keep. So it's as if they are living in another body, fighting the body that they belong to, and they result into self-harming themselves. The next promising type is a soloist. So I mean, there's always a saying that uh, sometimes you need to go alone for you to be able to succeed. But, I mean, that has context too. In fact, it has a lot of context. It has a lot of context. Let's say if you go alone, you can achieve a lot more. If you go with others, you can achieve so much more. Um, the solo is the one person that feels like, you know what, that means everybody's wasting my time. I got to do it alone. You get. I remember one time I wanted to build an entire end-to-end system. Like so, it was supposed to be like an inventory management system end-to-end. I wanted to build it alone. Yeah, I've not moved one each from that project. I can't remember the idea again. Said. Um, There's also another time where I wanted to also build a so there's this program like that. What it does, it helps with collecting staff forms from employees across company and then uses data science to kind of like help analyze and give like uh, insights that are largely emotionally based, just like understand the emotion and tone of guys. That was when I actually applied for a scholarship to I think World Quarant University. Yeah, for that their Python class just because I wanted to do data science and ML. I actually got the scholarship. I started a class and my those it was, I wanted to build that stuff. And I mean, I did it. I did it. And guys, after one pass understanding even the terminologies in Python, let's anyways that's the gist for another day. But um, the soloists feels like they can do it. You know what? They feel like they don't need it. They feel like if they're able to do a few things, they can do it alone. But it doesn't happen, and guess what? In fact, the inability for them to be able to do things alone actually teach them more. It's a problem. Then the last contestant type I want to talk about is the expert. Oh my. This one, he has probably has PhD, MSc, MBBS, MPA, OFR, MFR, GCFR, ON, and all the whatever that comes with it. I mean, the good thing about this kind of thing is that I kind of invest a lot in learning. That's one part. Other people are people who have scaled up the ladder from novice to beginner to junior to intermediate to senior, then to manager, then to expert. Man, this feels like to go. To go used to actually give us serious levels. But yeah, I mean, you scale through all the ranks, and one day something happens and you discover you don't even know shit. Like, I mean, you are at a. Just imagine what happens when you are at a panel of judges for a hackathon or for maybe a pitch. And I mean, these young folks who are like fresh out of school, their blood is hotting, and they come and they, they pick the product, run it down, and you are like, okay. I mean, just imagine a young fella trying to talk down on something you are supposed to know or maybe feel like you're supposed to, and you don't know. It makes you start questioning every single work you have done, whether you actually really merited it or it was just a stroke of luck. I don't know, but if you are a Christian here and you believe in God, shall just say amen. I pray for you today. That spirit of doubt to leave you in Jesus' name. Amen. But yeah, my point here is you have a tendency to actually meet a toddler that is that would seem smarter than you are. What I think you should do is to be excited to see such amazing talent and not the fact that you don't know that. One of the things I've discovered about everybody who has imposter syndrome is that it so just kind of like and it's rare when it's in comparison with other people. Um, you kind of like make it about yourself more often than not, and that's like likely the beginning of your breakdown. Yeah. Try as much as possible to make it less about yourself, and trust me, you will feel better about it. Now, managing imposter syndrome. Almost coming to close. Well, yeah, managing imposter syndrome. So the first in my experience and also with other folks I've spoken with, the first thing you want to do is to acknowledge that moment. When it happens, the first thing I think you want to do is to acknowledge This is your state. Be able to identify your feelings, name it. I mean, you can't shame the shameless, happy. I mean, anything that has a name, that's the beginning of understanding what it is. To acknowledge that moment, acknowledge, oh man, I feel like shit now. I feel like I don't know anything. Yeah, this is crazy. This is not to say acknowledging it means, well, this is not to say acknowledging it means falling into the spiral of overthinking. But it's more or less like agreeing that this is how you feel about it. A friend of ours, Open Bemiro, he sent out one of his newsletters and he was talking about validation. I mean, acknowledgement validation works. And I remember replying this email, and he was talking about how a few guys in his career, like his niche, they're talking about guys who have done mad stuff, guys who have done mad stuff, and how good they are. And he was shocked that nobody mentioned his name. In fact, like three persons in that conversation were more like close friends, and somehow nobody mentioned his name. And he started feeling like, am I, is it that have I not done enough to at least be mentioned? Is it like this people don't rate me or what? Like, what's happening? Have I not done enough? And all that. And I think, I mean, after reading it, I now reflected back on having similar experiences. And I mean, the same question I asked was, I mean, I feel like I've done so much to at least not have to struggle to have my leg in the door or mention my name. But fun fact, um, unfortunately, you might have to continue um, pushing that door yourself. That's one thing you also have to realize. But at the same time, I mean, it feels good that sometimes you are not there for what is said about you. Always keeps the door open. But at the same time, you also have to agree to the fact that sometimes, um, Femi, I said Bemiro, Bemiro, fourth canvas communications lead or something. Yeah. So one of the things Ope said he did was first acknowledge that that was how he was feeling, but and at the same time, the next thing he did was to revalidate himself. And I also gave him tips. So I also said you have to be intentional. Now I'm off to validation. You have to be intentional about validation in the sense that take it or leave it. I know people talk about how words of affirmation are like their love languages or their least love language. But the truth is, every single person craves validation in one way or the other. Some it is glaringly obvious, others mask it with something else, others completely claim to ignore it. Well, I mean, when we go to that place where it is just us, we know what happens in our head. Well, yes, but one of the things to help you manage imposter syndrome is to be intentional about your validation. And here's what I mean, and here's why I have done. While I was at Softcom, just about a few months before I left, I asked a few of my colleagues to write me a recommendation on LinkedIn. About four of them did. I also asked a few parents and friends I've worked for in the past to write me recommendations. I remember asking, in fact, I've asked Mudia to like sincerely tell me what he thinks about me, both the good and the bad. I've asked a few other friends, and the truth is, I actually document all of this. I have asked clients for the past during my when I was just taking my university and degree, I actually screenshotted every review I got for the project I submitted, and I saved them in the box called validation. And what I do is when I get this what load of feeling that I am not good enough, I just go there and open what that box feels like. And trust me, it feels like heaven. Reading these things people say about me sort of remotivates me that there is someone out there, there are people out there who value the work I do and value every single effort I've put in. I think one of the best things I enjoyed about my fantasy program is somehow the reviewers actually took time to go through my work and they were specific and particular about the things I do that they like a lot. And it's exciting. I mean, that was the one thing that excited me so much about saving those reviews. They gave me real um, boost points on the fact that what I was doing was already validated. You get, and all of this kind of helped me build confidence moving forward. Like I said, be intentional about your validations, revisit them, say those words to yourself, say those words to yourself, and I mean, get that energy boost that you need. Another um, another managing mechanism is community. Like I said again, if you check back, the reality in life is that you are dependent, whatever you know and whatever others know, you are dependent on them and they're dependent on you. So building community is one way to actually reaffirm yourself that your community needs you. You need your community. It's like an exchange program. You guys are exchanging all of this to be able to grow. Yes. So the community needs you and you need your community. I mean, you don't have to make and it could be your friends and it could be a small group of people. Or maybe like people you trust that you can rely on. Like stuff goes on and you can run to them and trust that you have it back. I have them in small snippets, but again, I would always say this: Coterie is the best community in the world. He's. But anyways, that also saying you should be. I also still have great friends like Media. I also have good friends like Caleb, Osas, and I mean these are people I kind of like communicate um, day in day out. Shit happens both design wise and personal life wise around to media. And guess what? It's getting to it's I don't know. Media she is over a year now since we started talking. I've never met Media, but frankly speaking, you do think that we probably live together or something. You get. I kind of like this. Honestly, it's like um, we have known from way back, and that has been able to help me. I always like even when even when I mess up, I I legit give him full story. There's no holding back. I'm not trying to pen stuff. You get, and he tells me, hey, I think you messed up big time here. I mean, it doesn't have to be like this. And we have also shared other, I mean, concerns like the other room kind of no, not the other room kind of concerns, guys. Don't get it twisted. But I mean, yeah. Anyways, well, yeah. So that's I mean, community friends they actually help you revalidate yourself and give you that boost to come out of that shell. They tell you, uh, you did this. You actually did this. Why do you think you can't do this? Yeah. Then finally, for those who believe in God, I want to acknowledge that probably there are some who doesn't. Well, yeah, for those who believe in God, acknowledgement, validation, and community for me is nothing if God isn't with me. I believe the nature of God abides in me. I believe that I am the manifestation of God's nature. And the Bible, which I believe in, which I read, tells me how um, God's spirit in me has given me the nature of excellence and of boldness and of courage. And because I believe in that, sometimes when acknowledgement validation comes, it doesn't work. I mean, I just say, God, by your hand I did, and I just do it. And I mean, for the longest, even when I don't acknowledge it, for the longest, God has actually um, led me through trying times. But yeah, guys, avoid urge to shalaye. You are the best of the best. You are more than enough. You are everything and more. Shall avoid the urge to shalaye. Thank you guys, and I love you. I mean, questions, so you can ask. I think you can ask questions in the comments. And,
All right, Charles, that was awesome. Thank you so much for for sharing your life and even listening to you. There was like a lot of, maybe it's me imagining, but there was like a lot of weight and emotion because you could really relate to this topic. Wow, thank you so much. And
thank you.
I really learned a lot too because I've been struggling in and out of this imposter syndrome thing, even on projects I've been working on, like even when the client is blown away and is happy about everything, me myself, I'm just killing myself that, oh my god, this thing is horrible. I failed, I've done this and that. But this is just like a reminder, especially looking at things like acknowledgement and validation. And I think this is something that all of us need to take to heart. We have questions. If you have any questions, you can just type it in the box, or I don't know if you can allow people to just speak freely. Maybe that could also work. What do you think, Charles?
Um, how do you want to give room to us to speak? Except someone like I mean raise their hand, then you unmute them.
Yeah, okay. I think we should do the questions in the chat space, because we are recording and we don't want people talking over each other. So it's better if send a message in the chat, the question.
So Charles, someone is asking if you can talk about the acknowledgement part again. That's Boluwatife.
Oh, oh, okay. So the acknowledgement part, I was saying what I meant, like I said earlier, was you have to acknowledge this feeling, give it a name. You know, there are some people who even swear that they don't have imposter syndrome just because I feel like imposter syndrome is a bad thing, like some sort of stigma, and you are going to be. I mean, even the most sorry to say this, but the most annoying people who do this are religious people. Like, how can you be imposter syndrome? Don't you believe in God? Don't you? Yeah, you have to agree and acknowledge it is what it is first. Give it a name. You can't shame the shameless. Now, understand what this is. Understand why you are feeling this way. Understand that maybe you just, this is imposter syndrome and this is you feeling like you are not enough and you can't do this. Then move towards the fact that, okay, now I know it is okay to feel like this, but it is not okay to dwell in it. So I would actually actively sort of like reaffirm my thoughts and bring myself like give myself that energy boost from the other forms I have also listed here to kind of like move up past it. So I mean, for example, you've acknowledged that this is imposter syndrome, and I mean, for example, let me use myself. I've acknowledged that this is imposter syndrome, and the next thing I do is hit media up. Hey G, what's up, man? I mean, I really feel down. I don't think I've done enough. There's this thing I'm supposed to do more. just feels like I'm not getting it. Just feels like it just doesn't make any sense. What I have done,
Hey Charles,
yeah,
there's there's interference. I don't know. I think it's from your end. And so the last few things you said wasn't very clear.
can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but there's static. But can you repeat what you said basically?
Okay. Can you hear me now clearly?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I was saying I will give you an instance of how acknowledgement can work and also how it also ties to the other ways of managing imposter syndrome. So I was saying, imagine I have this workload of imposter syndrome at the moment, and I just hit Muja up, who happens to be one of my community, and I'm like, man, the way I feel now, I no longer say I don't know how I feel. I say, man, I feel like I can't do this. Now I know I have acknowledged that feeling. I've acknowledged that moment, what all of this is. Yes. And that even gives Mudia um kind of like a prompt on what to do. And he goes, bro, what are you saying, man? I think you can. I mean, look at what you did the other time on this project. I think that was outstanding. I even actually the person who actually does that a lot to me is that Dan 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 randomly messages me. I'm like, bro, there was something you did on our project. I just implemented it on this one, and man, it looks mad. That alone actually gives me confidence that maybe yeah, I'm doing something right. The same way I always miss. There's a project I was working on, and the first person I had to message was like, "Guy, come and see how I implemented that." I mean, I didn't even say come and see. I just like help me see this thing. He looks at it was like, "This looks familiar." I was like, "Obviously," because I copied it. I sent him a screenshot of my screen where I opened one of the projects he worked on and shared with me. I told him I copied it from this project he showed me and kind of like modified it and made it sweet. So that kind of, I mean, I've acknowledged first, I've acknowledged the way I feel, and now him kind of like reminding me of something I did that was outstanding and blew me away, reboots my confidence. So that's how acknowledgement, validation, and even community can all and God, all four of them can kind of like work together at once, helping you manage uh, the situation. Yeah, I hope I answered the question.
Okay, that was great. Thanks, Charles. Uh, are there any more questions from the audience? Okay, if you do not, all right, if you do not have any questions, can you type in hi and send in the chat box? Thanks. So Adeyemo Victor is asking, is there space for mentorship? Over to you, Charles.
Victor, so currently I do not have structure for that, and I actually have been thinking about that a lot lately. But truth, truth is, there isn't anything concrete on ground now. I'm always open to maybe giving snippet of advice or kind of like directing, but a full blown mentorship structure isn't in place. I will be working towards that soon, and be very certain you would get to know once that happens.
Right. It looks like we don't have any more questions from the audience. So uh, I guess we can call
Thank
it a
you
night.
guys for having me.
Yeah, thanks for sparing some time to teach us in this class. So there are more classes scheduled for. There are more classes scheduled over the next few weeks. We do not have, or we are not going with a more regimented pat- patterns so as not to quickly drain you of energy because there are so many webinars going on. Okay, there's a new question. I feel there are situations where people's circumstances might look like imposter syndrome, but they actually aren't. That's from Femi.
Yeah, I mean, from the beginning of my slide, I kind of like highlighted things that actually are kind of like point towards what imposter syndrome looks like. And I mean, like I said, the first thing is the fact that at least you you have done stuff that are worthy of mention, but you just feel like they're not, you know. And I think one other thing I think to mention, there's a bit of there's a thin line between imposter syndrome and attention seeking. And I don't want to use the word cloud chasing. Why I say there's a thin line is I know there are people. It's not because I don't feel like that, but it's just because they actually crave that attention that comes with having to like hmm, uh, kind of like get people talk about them. That's I mean that sort of stuff. But there's a thin line. Fortunately, I'm not sure everyone can explain when we go past that line because there are also gray areas there. Well, I mean, you just shall genuinely know at some point if this person is constantly cloud chasing or seeking attention or really actually experiencing imposter syndrome. You get there is no other word to be able to describe it. Well, you shall we know. You shall we know eventually.
All right. So yeah, yes. So there are a few more. Um, yeah. Thank you, Charles, for answering the question. So there are a few more. As I was saying, there are a few more sessions being planned for the next couple of weeks, and we are more or less following an ad hoc pattern. So please stay updated on social media because that's where, on Twitter especially, that's where we will send out updates on when this recording will be available on YouTube to watch, for instance, and also when the next session will be and what it will be about, and especially who is going to be taking that session. Okay. Uh, Feel free to message Asha Coterie on Twitter if you have any issues. One of us is definitely going to be uh, looking through the messages. You can also message Charles directly on Twitter. And if you have any more questions, you can message him or you can tweet at him just as efficient. Thank you so much for being here and see you in the next session.